not sure if this sounds familiar to you, but maybe you've been out with someone who's very careful with money. Not cheap, just extremely intentional. Every dollar is watched, and then they do something that makes the whole table go quiet. They ask the server for tap water instead of ordering a side, or they pull out a calculator to split a bill down to exact cents. They might even adjust the math because one person sat closer to the heater, and you're sitting there thinking, how does someone this intense about money earn this much? Moments like that made me look at my own reactions to money. So today, we're going to break down what's really happening here, and it might surprise you how little this actually has to do with money. There's a financial psychologist named Brad Klontz who talks about something called money scripts. These are beliefs about money that form early in life, before we even understand what money really is. People who are extremely cautious with spending often develop what's called money vigilance. Their brain treats spending like danger. Even small purchases can trigger anxiety, as if something bad is about to happen. It's like an internal alarm system that goes off, even when there's no real threat. Research shows this usually comes from one of two places. Either they grew up watching adults panic about money, or they lived through something painful themselves: debt, loss, financial collapse. Their nervous system learns one lesson: never again, so it stays on high alert forever. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all extreme savers grew up without money. Some actually grew up with plenty. That sounds confusing until you realize they absorbed the fear, not the hardship. They inherited the anxiety without living the event. Your body doesn't care whether the danger was real or secondhand. It just remembers that spending feels unsafe. So you reuse containers until they fall apart. You drive across town to save a few cents, even though it costs more in gas. The logic might be off, but the emotional pattern makes perfect sense. There's another type of extreme saver too, and their motivation is different. For them, money is about control. When life feels unstable, work, relationships, housing, people cling to the one thing they can control: what they buy, what they don't buy. That feeling of control matters more than the small amount of money saved. That's why you'll see strange contradictions. Someone won't pay for parking, but will spend thousands on a collection they love. They clip coupons for basics, but lease an expensive car. They're not inconsistent. They're meeting different emotional needs. Psychologists have found there's actually a middle ground where people feel best. Those who save consistently and spend mindfully tend to feel calmer and more secure. But many people miss that balance. They either spend to soothe anxiety or save so aggressively that life becomes joyless. The line between being responsible and being emotionally stuck is thinner than most people realize. What's even more interesting is this: extreme spenders and extreme savers are often driven by the same thing: anxiety. One tries to feel better through buying. The other tries to feel safe through saving. Different behaviors, same root. There's also a social cost that doesn't get talked about enough. When you always avoid spending, people stop inviting you, not because they dislike you, but because it feels uncomfortable. Over time, that isolation increases anxiety, which tightens your grip on money even more. And in relationships, this gets even harder. Money is one of the biggest sources of conflict between partners. When one person is hyper careful and the other isn't, each sees the other as dangerous. One feels controlled, the other feels unsafe. Neither is wrong. They're just running completely different money scripts on autopilot. There's also a painful paradox. Some people have enough money to be generous, but can't access it emotionally. They want to help, but giving triggers panic. Then guilt follows. It becomes another emotional knot. Therapists who work with money issues often say this: saving can become just as unhealthy as spending when it damages relationships or blocks joy. The goal of extreme saving is security, but taken too far, it creates the opposite. You're so focused on future threats that you can't live in the present. Your bank account says you're safe. Your nervous system disagrees, and that's the core of it. This behavior is almost never about money. It's about safety, control, anxiety, and old experiences that once made sense but may not serve you anymore. The tricky part is that thriftiness gets praised, so people rarely question it. If this made you uncomfortable, that's actually a good sign. It means something clicked.